Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to the most spectacular tournament of the year. Welcome to the FIDE World Rapid and Blitz chess tournament in 2024 that's going on now in the beautiful town of New York, USA. So first of all, in the first 3 days, we'll see 13 rounds of beautiful rapid chess. The tempo of the games is 15 minutes on the clock plus 10 seconds increment per move, and among many great players, Magnus Carlsen is again playing in the FIDE World Chess Championship event. Magnus is of course also the top favorite to win everything, I think, here, and we're starting now actually this event with an amazing gameplay by Magnus Carlsen against Denis Kadric in a crazy Petrov's defense. Magnus played the first round, a good game I would say, with the black pieces. Now it was time for him maybe to do something with white. Let's see now what happened. It was really a cool, sharp, tactical gameplay by this two top grandmasters. So with white, Magnus opened with the move e4. Denis Kadric's response was e5. We have knight to f3, knight to f6. We have now the Russian game, the Petrov defenses on the board here by black. Knight takes e5. We have d6, knight to f3, and after knight takes e4, knight to c3. We have now the so-called Nimzowitsch attack here by Magnus, forcing now reaction by black. You could maybe try to go into this line with knight takes c3, but then after d takes c3, it gets into this, I would say, a very good position for white, where white will develop the bishops on e3, and on d3 will have then great attacking chances on this side of the board. But okay, after knight to c3, Denis Kadric simply retreated, and Magnus advanced now the pawn to d4. You have bishop to e7, bishop to d3, calcing, and now h3. I would say also a good move here by Magnus Carlsen. A nice prophylactic idea, not allowing to get pinned here by the bishop on g4. Rook to e8, calcing by Magnus, and now knight from b to d7. Also a good defensive move, keeping now everything compact. Now in some line, we could try c6, control the d5 score for the knight, and black has, I think, so far a solid setup. But this move, knight to d7, although it's the most popular line, I would say, here for black, is also doing a bad thing, I would say. This move, knight to d7, is blocking out so far the light for bishop's activity, and you see now in the next couple of moves that Denis Kadric will have a tough time to get somehow this light for bishop into the game. Magnus continues now with the normal rook to e1, and here Denis Kadric plays here the theoretical novelty with the move h6. Maybe here a slightly better way to proceed, and I think it's also the most natural way to proceed, is to play knight to f8. You keep your knight here close to the king, you're defending the h7 square, and still you have opportunities to go somewhere, maybe with the light square bishop, then at least the bishop is breathing. But after move h6, which is not such a bad move, I would say, it's perfectly fine to play the game like this, but this move, I think, has to be a part of your home preparation. You have to know really now great theory after this move, because Magnus is saying, okay, this is slightly passive, basically nothing is going on now immediately here on the king side. Magnus says, I'll attack you immediately here on the queen side with the move a4. Magnus goes immediately for the attack. Denis Kadric boxes out now the potential progress by white here on the queen side, and now Magnus plays an active bishop to f8. We bishop to f4. We have now bishop to f8 here by Denis Kadric, simply competing now against this unpleasant rook on the e file, and now rook takes e8 by Magnus, queen takes e8, and now queen to d2, simply now keeping the e file open for the rook, and now Magnus will probably get an extra tempo against the queen on e8. Here also, what was an opportunity for Magnus was immediately to play the move knight to b5, immediately hitting the pawn on the c7, and then black would be forced to play something like queen to d8, and actually in this line, Magnus could have also attacked the position with a progressive c4. I would say it's also very complicated to play now for black. c6 is of course not happening because of the weakness on d6. So okay, queen to d2, perfectly fine here by Magnus, and now knight is pardon me, here c6 was played by Denis Kadric, preventing finally this move knight to b5. Although I would say maybe it was time for Denis Kadric to finally liberate somehow this light square bishop, to get it somehow into the game. Then after something like b3, you can finally get it here, and I would say pretty solid position for black. Of course, white should be slightly better because of the activity, because of the potential attack by the rook on the e file, and of course I would say also the minor pieces are slightly better in white's camp. But this was, I would say, sort of maybe not the must move idea here for black, but at least your pieces are breeding. With this move c6 that Denis Kadric played, okay, he prevented now the move knight to b5 by Magnus. But now also, again, I would point out again that this knight is simply standing in the way of the light square bishop, and uses Magnus uses now this moment immediately. Plays now rook to e1. Denis Kadric has to step back. Now Magnus simply gets a better score for the bishop, keeps an eye on this score on d6, and is preparing also to play a calm king to h2, knight to e4 in some lines is possible, to play also maybe in some lines knight to h4. Knight to h4, I think, is now the most aggressive idea that white can produce. Knight to h4, knight to f5, hitting many scores here in the center of the board and also on the king side. So Magnus is preparing this beautiful hop of the knight. Now if you play knight to b6, could be possible again, but now it's a little bit too slow, I would say, because of bishop to h4, hitting the knight on f6. Very complicated again here to defend for Denis Kadric because of the potential knight to e4 attack and simply putting more pressure against this knight. So here after bishop to g3, Denis Kadric continued with queen to b6, hit simply the pawn on b2, but now the real fun starts. Magnus from this point on, I think, plays simply like a machine. Magnus goes immediately into his idea with knight to h4. Great counterplay. Although Denis Kadric attacked now the pawn on b2, Magnus goes for the attack on this side of the board, simply stuck to this plan, which is, I think, really a thematic attack that you see now by Magnus Carlsen. And it's also, I would say, really a great lesson for beginners, maybe, that we should not always be just scared by our opponent's ideas, because if you try here queen takes b2, white would simply get enormous pressure. Look at this. You continue the attacking flow with rook to b1. Then the queen has to step back. You just step back also with the queen. Try, of course, to get the queen more active here, of course, on the e file. If you maybe try to play d5 to somehow liberate the dark square bishop, then we can play finally this move knight to f5. If you try bishop to b4, look at this. As I said, white simply continues the pressure. In one moment, bishop to d6 is going to happen. This is just one line, but I wanted to show you that although white lost upon, the white pieces are playing in brilliant harmony. So I would say devastating position here for black. So Denis Kadric noticed that he cannot immediately take the pawn on b2. He tried queen to b4, tried to go for a different pawn, but even if you in any of these lines take queen takes b4, then there is the tactic bishop to h7, discover the attack against the queen, and the queen could be lost. So Magnus has, I think, from this point on, a perfect position. Not so spectacular, it seems, in the beginning, but you see how Magnus attacks immediately with this idea knight to f5. Denis Kadric is now under huge pressure. We have knight to b6. Finally, black is trying to liberate the bishop. The move that we have talked about much earlier should have been played by Denis Kadric really much faster. Now the knight is already very progressive here. Magnus continues with a brilliant knight to e7, great move, king to h8, and now queen to f4. Again, a beautiful idea here by Magnus Carlsen, because again, you cannot pick up the pawn on b2. This would be devastating because of knight to e4, putting more pressure against this knight. Look at this, great attacking chances here for white. If you try, for instance, knight to d5, then knight takes d5, you try maybe c takes d5, knight to f6 is of course winning. Even if you try here knight to e4, then the issue is here queen to f7 with an immediate checkmate threat. Queen to e4 is also working, not the point about that, but queen to f7 is even much harder to defend. Even if you pick up this piece, then a new check is coming, and now in this tactical sequence, you're simply getting destroyed here by the beautiful bishops and queens activity. I'm showing you this line because this line is again pointing out the lack of development of the light square bishop, where the rook is also not participating in the game. So queen takes b2, I think we have solved now this issue, that it's simply not possible to take because of huge pressure after move knight to e4. Even queen takes d4 is not working here because there are some lines here. Knight to g5, you're trying maybe to take, and then knight to f7 is also a beautiful checkmate pattern, for instance, that could have happened. This just Mikhail Tal stuff that Magnus Carlsen probably prepared in this beautiful game. So as I said, really amazing attacking formation Magnus Carlsen has already here. And now Denis Kadric plays bishop to e6. comes a little bit too slow because of knight to g6. Great move again by Magnus, simply not allowing here black to breathe. We have now king to g8, we have now knight takes f8, rook takes f8, and now queen takes d6. Magnus grab now pawn, and Denis Kadric finally now picks up here the pawn on b2, but again it's not working. Magnus continues to pressure with a beautiful rook takes e6, f takes e6, queen takes e6 could have been also played, but knight to e4. Here Magnus again puts more pressure against this knight, and here Denis Kadric doesn't react correctly. I think again queen to e6 is also possible, so not to point about that, but Magnus really plays here the optimal moves. Knight to e4, he's not rushing, he knows that he has a beautiful formation. Look at this, the bishop is very well placed, this bishop is crossing also all over the board, the knights are now a little bit misplaced by black, and Denis Kadric tried now knight from b to d5, which was really not the best of choices. He should have gone to d7, where the knight is more connected to this to this rook on f8. But in any of these lines, queen to e6 finally is going to happen, king to h8, and then we can go with knight to d6, knight to f7. So in any of these lines, again, black is getting simply destroyed. So here Kadric tried knight from b to d5, but now Magnus finally took. We have now king to h8, and now Magnus tried this idea, knight to d6, that we have discussed, with an attack against the weak f7 square. And what should you do now from black's perspective? In order to stay in the game, you should play here queen to d4, but I'm pointing out in any of these lines, I would say white is winning. Queen to d4, then knight to f5 would probably come, and then even if you step back to c3, white can even allow himself here to play a calm move, king to h2, doesn't have to even to rush with the attack, simply improving the position of the king. Even if you try queen to d2, then knight to h4 with the idea of knight to g6 is devastating again. Completely, I would say, game over here for black. But after knight to d6, Kadric tried knight to b4, which is not good because now the queen is coming on a beautiful square on e7, and I would say really complicated now position here for black. After knight b4, Magnus of course continues with queen to e7, that move that we have discussed. And the issue for black is here that you don't have a good score with your rook. For instance, if you try rook to g8, then you get knight to f7 checkmate. If you try somewhere else, if you try rook to b8, then knight to f7 comes with a discovered attack against the rook. So the rook is really misplaced. You have to go now here with your rook to a8. Magnus grabs now new pawn on b7. Again, Denis Kadric has to react. Again, Magnus now attacks the rook. Again, here Denis Kadric has to repeat moves, and now Magnus plays a beautiful check with knight to f7. After king to g8, now comes knight takes h6. A great move again by Magnus. Even if you try to play, I don't know, king to h8, then again this tactic is coming, then the bishop is getting activated. So here, game over, I would say, again for black. But after knight to h6, here Denis Kadric just improved also now the position of white. Magnus has now great chances after queen to f6. Kadric took, but nothing is really working because Magnus grabbed first of all of the pawns after queen to f6, king to g8. Now Magnus played c takes d3. The engine doesn't like this move, but it's just a tiny little inaccuracy in any of these lines. Magnus Carlsen simply winning, and in this particular position, Denis Kadric resigned. So what's the issue? Even if you try, I don't know, something like, I don't know, to get the queen somehow into the game, then the issue is the batteries here working with bishop to e5. Too much pressure here against black's king. Although Magnus Carlsen, as I said, instead of this move c takes d3, could have simply played queen to g6 and now to take. Then after queen to a1 and queen to d4, then you go for this one, queen to g5 with bishop to e5 is simply undefendable. If you try rook to e8, then first a check and you pick up the rook. So this was maybe slightly more accurate approach, but after c takes d3, black's king is so naked, this battery is simply unstoppable here by black. So amazing game here by Magnus. Magnus is in top shape. If he continues to play like this, if he continues to push the position like this, I would say nothing can stop Magnus Carlsen in this event. We'll see what will happen. Of course, many great players are here, like Alireza, Hikaru, Fabiano Caruana, of course, is also there. but this was an epic game, really spectacular attack by Magnus Carlsen in the round 2 of the FIDE World Rapid Chess Championship in 2024. So okay, this will be it now for the round 2. We'll cover, of course, now also a couple of games from the round 3, 4, and 5 that will happen today. The next day we'll then have also 5 rounds, and then also on the third day some other rounds of this epic chess event. So far, I think we see a spectacular Magnus Carlsen in this beautiful, beautiful chess tournament. So okay, if you want to see some other beautiful chess games, here on my YouTube chess channel, check out our Come to Chess Games here. Here's the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.